What's up, everybody? Happy Monday to you. Hope you had a good long Memorial Day weekend. Get ready for a short work week. It's always fun going into a short work week. Welcome in to another episode of OBR GameTape here on the OBR Streaming Network. If you're hitting us up on YouTube, please make sure you hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, turn that bell so you know every time we go live and every time that we post any content of any sort. I'm your host, Jacob, joined by my wonderful co-host, Mr. Sam Pennick. Sam, how you doing today, man?
Doing well. Long weekend is good. Dogs barking is good. Love dogs here on the OBR live channel. So nothing really newsworthy happening in Brown's universe, which is perfectly fine. So just getting into more of these rookies.
Yeah, this is definitely the time of year where if you're making much news, it's either you sign somebody to a big contract or something, like some kind of extension or something of that nature, or because somebody did something they really shouldn't have done. So you're sometimes much happier for it to be the no newsworthy kind of stuff going on.
They already checked that box this off season.
Sometimes they take care of that stuff early on and you don't have to worry about it. So today, guys, we are jumping into third round pick. First for a third round pick for the Browns, Harold Fannin Jr., the tight end out of Bowling Green. If you missed them, we've already done Quinshaw Judkins, Carson Schlesinger, and Mason Graham film reviews here. This show runs every Monday at 7 p.m. We're probably going to do some UDFAs or some things like that. Once we get through the draft class, we'll see where we are in terms of, I haven't actually mapped out what date that would be, but it would be before the end of June. So we're getting there close, but you can go check those out under the live tab. You can see the other ones as we jump into Harold Fannin, the tight end, who was all over the place in consensus big boards. Like I saw some places have him in like the third round where he was taken, but I also quite a few boards had him around 100. So I was very interested to see when the Browns took him there at 67, which was kind of fine for me. Some people said maybe it was a little too early, but I don't think it was too early. I think it was perfectly fine. So let's get into it, man. Just off the rip at the top, what do you like about his game?
He's just fun. Like he's a very unique, interesting player, and his tape is just a lot of fun. It's just enjoyable to watch because he does a lot of different things. Right off the bat, he doesn't have necessarily the prototypical tight end size, right? He's 6'3", 240, somewhere in that range. So he's on the smaller side for sure, but he was Bowling Green's entire offense pretty much, right? Just about, right? They had a running back, Terrion Stewart. I think he's transferred somewhere else, but he was pretty good. He I noticed him watching the tape, but other than that, it was all Harold Fannin. All the defenses that they played knew that, and he still broke the single season receiving yardage record. So that tells you something right there. Just the stats, and then the tape lines up with that, right? He's versatile. He's athletic. He's a great runner after the catch. He's really difficult to bring down. They gave him the ball on like jet sweeps, shotgun handoffs, lining up as a running back, direct snaps, and wildcat. They even had him throw a pass downfield. Like, he was doing all sorts of stuff, and he was great at it. Like, he was legitimately excellent, very hard to stop, even when playing premier competition, as we'll see today. He was still fantastic, and he did all this as one of the youngest players in the draft class at 20 years old still. So yeah, I think he's got a load of potential, and I'm not upset with him at 67 at all. I think that was perfectly fine for him, and I think that's going to be a pick that pays off down the road, because I think as what he is right now, I think can be an effective part of your offense. And then what he could become 2, 3, 4 years down the line, I think that's where things are really interesting.
Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head, especially when you brought up the age part. When I go back and think about this, like I told you this last night, we had a conversation. When you go back and you watch the tape, you're just watching the tape. You're like, this is good tape. Like, this is a quality prospect that has the tools to be a quality player in the NFL. But then you go, wait, this kid is 20 doing all of this. And you're like, oh, okay. Now you've, now you're starting, like, he's not completely on David Njoku's level in terms of the type of athlete. That's why he goes third round. David goes first. But like, there's a lot of similarities in the sense where you see a guy who kind of raw, like has all this physical talent and everything he needs to have a high ceiling. He's just not there yet. Well, David was 20 when he came into the NFL. And now, here comes Harold Fannin at 20. He'll be 21, I think, before the season. But like, you're just talking about all this stuff that he's done. And you're like, he's still not in his athletic prime yet. Like, there's
not even close.
Yeah, he's on the roller coaster and he's still climbing up that first hill. Like, we haven't even gotten to that part yet. The one thing that I think kind of gets me to the alignment versatility is insane. The way they used a tight end, like you talked about it. He threw a dime, by the way. Like, it was dropped, but they did have him throw a pass play on a reverse jet sweep where he threw it.
It was a good throw.
Yeah, he threw like 40 yards on a rope, and like the defender was there. He kind of underthrew it a little bit because the receiver had to slow down. The defender I think it was against Penn State, if I remember correctly, and it ends up getting broken up. But I'm like, man, like this guy could actually be a real gadgety weapon. And like his athleticism, like he doesn't run like a 4.4. It's nothing like that. But like, he's so smooth. Like, it's so smooth and fluid the way he moves. And like, yeah, he's a little undersized. He's a little undersized to play tight end. I understand that. Just in terms of percentiles and things like that, 6'3", 240, he's not quite, he's a little bit of a tweener. And I think that's kind of what also had him fall a little bit, because he just might not be prototypical, but I don't see that big of an issue with it. Trying to look at some of my notes. Yeah. After the catch is where he's probably his best. I think he's got good contact balance. It's really funny because I think he needs to get stronger as a blocker. Like his lower body strength, I think he has to get stronger to be more consistent. And I'll show you an example of where I'm like, oh, if he was a little bit stronger, this play could have been more, it could have been a bigger play. But it doesn't mean he can't run over defensive backs in line, in linebackers sometimes. It's I think he needs to get a little bit stronger to block some of these linemen and things of that nature. But like, I think he's got good play strength. I think he moves. I think it's really fun to watch him with the ball in his hands because he finds different ways. He's got a nice stiff arm he busts out every once in a while. He's got this kind of like, I'll show it kind of like he, you remember when Baker didn't get the first out, or he did get the first out, when Baker high stepped against Minnesota that one year, he does that a couple of times here and there where he'll like high step a little bit and it just confuses the defender. And then he gets past him for like 3 or 4 extra yards. And I'm like, I've never seen a 240-pound tight end do that kind of stuff. So it like made me chuckle watching the tape. You're like, I don't know, Sam, you ever seen a 240 tight end like do some of the stuff that he does to try to make people miss?
Not like that. And you said, it is really smooth and fluid, and then it's also really clunky at the same time because of how he runs. It's so weird, but it works, and it's just fun because of that. And like you said, functional core strength, lower body strength, I think is one of the areas of growth that we'd like to see from him. Again, 20 years old, so a couple years NFL strength and conditioning program. I think you can hope for more mass and muscle on the body there, but he's not a bad blocker right now. Like I think he's a net positive as a blocker right now, and that's pass protection. That's opening up lanes and sealing off guys, to keep running lanes open for his back. And then they also use him as a lead blocker, like a fullback a lot. So he can do a lot of different things. And it's just fun. And he's just a unique player because we haven't seen something like this. And he's not like an H-back gadget type where you're like, I don't really know what to do with this guy. Like you could put him as an inline tight end. I think he can function well enough, but the draw with him is his versatility. Like he could do all these other things. You can line him up as a big slot, and he can, I think, flourish in that role. There's so many different things you can do versatility-wise that I think open up a lot of possibilities with your offense as the second tight end.
Yeah. I would not be super in love with if I only had one tight end and he was my inline blocking tight end. I'm not ready to put him there all the time. A lot of it is, like you said, we both touched on it. The functional strength, like it's good enough as a runner, but as a blocker, like he just got to get a little bit stronger. He'll get it. You talked about strength. We've talked about it on the show a million times. It's like when that's one of my biggest gripes, I'm good with that. I can live with that. I'm like, the guy just needs to get stronger. Well, they're not going to there's nowhere better in the world to get stronger than a professional, one of these professional strength and conditioning programs.
Negatives. The 20-year-old player lacks ideal strength. Okay,
go figure. I know what I was like at 20 years old compared to now. Like, that's it though. It's like he's a little undersized, could be a little bit stronger. He can struggle sometimes against press man. Well, guess what? That's getting stronger. Like he gets stronger and he kind of like alleviates a lot of these things. I just think you talk about the versatility. You've already got one tight end that can create mismatch nightmares. Well, now you got a pair of them because you can put both David Njoku and Harold Fannin all over the spot, all over the place. And like Harold Fannin, like he's not going to be super, super explosive in terms of like getting off the line of scrimmage and getting to top speed. Although he can get to his top speed relatively well. It just takes him a little bit, but he will push it vertically down the seam. Like if you let him run between linebackers and safeties, he's going to find the hole there and he's going to give you a nice target. And I'll show you a couple of those plays. But let's do it, man. Let's get into it. And I'll throw your film up here. So let's get into some of the fun.
Yeah. I think what you'll see a lot of in these clips is his ability to play receiver. Like he's matched up against cornerbacks a lot in these reps. And that's something that I don't know if the Browns necessarily intended this to be the case, but they didn't address wide receiver at all this offseason, right? They lost talent in that position group. So you're banking on some of these unproven young guys to take a step, but I'm wondering if they end up using Fannin more as kind of that third or fourth pass catching weapon over, a fifth, sixth string receiver, just because he's probably more talented than those guys. So that's something that you'll be able to see. It's like, wow, he can actually, hold his own against corners, which is impressive. So this first play is from Texas A&M. So again, legitimate competition, and he dominated them. This play ends up getting called back, but he takes the screen pass for a touchdown from the 21. I mean, he's just weaving through traffic, and he ends up in the end zone. So, and they called it a touchdown on the field, I'm pretty sure, but they ended up calling it back, for a penalty. So, but he can do that. He's a legit weapon on screen passes, even though, again, he's not the most linearly explosive guy, but he just finds a way to maneuver through traffic, and he gets to his top speed, and he's able to stay there and make moves, make different cuts, change direction without losing that speed. I think is one of the most impressive things about him, which again doesn't make any sense whatsoever because of the way he runs.
No,
but it works.
Somebody on draft night saw a couple clips of him. And wasn't familiar with his game. I had a conversation with him, but he was like, he looks kind of slow. Like somebody was like, why were we drafted? He looks slow. And I'm like, it just looks that way. Trust me, he gets vertical well. And I showed him some other clips and he was like, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Like you said, it does not look like he's moving the way he moves, but he eats up yardage.
Yeah. Again, he's not going to run away from people. Like he'll get caught from behind. But time and time again, he ends up in these huge patches of green, and you're like, how did he get that wide open? And it's just because he just has that ability to get to those spaces quickly enough. And I think that's going to continue in the NFL. So here's he's lined up in the slot here, and he's just going to run an out, but then he's going to finish the play and truck this defender like 2 yards in the air at the end of the play, which is just, again, fun. Nothing special here. The guy breaks down, boom. He flies. He legitimately flies 2 yards in the air just because he trucks him.
Pete Smith has talked a million times this offseason about how he's like, the Browns need to get more physical.
There you go. The 6'3", 240-pound, 20-year-old tight end gives you the physicality you're looking for.
It's crazy.
So here's an example of him blocking. He's on the end of the line of scrimmage here. So he initially does a good job here, but he has to actually stay engaged. And the guy ends up making the tackle, I'm pretty sure. So this is an example of if he's able to add more strength, he can, develop his technique more to where he can keep engagement there. He can be a net positive in the blocking game in the NFL. So if he's able to hold this block and prevent this guy from getting into that running lane, drive him out here 2-3 yards, that's a big hole because all the running back has to do is beat number 10 here, and then he's gone. So you got, something to work on, something that hopefully will be able to improve. And I don't think there's any reason to doubt that it's going to improve because of his age. And he's going from a MAC school to the NFL, so it'll take some time, but I think he can get there for sure. So this is another little screen similar to the first play we watched. It's almost like a Texas route where he runs out and then zigzags back inside. And he just yardage, right? It's not, it doesn't look like he's that fast, but he eats up that ground. And you're like, wait, how did he get that far that quickly? It didn't look like he took that many steps.
The long strider. That's where
Yeah.
he's a little undersized overall, like compared to other tight ends, but not in NFL terms. He's still got good good length, good long legs.
Yeah. He definitely has a similar body type build to Brock Bowers, which can work. I mean, I think Bowers, better athlete, bigger, more physical, longer arms, etc. But the archetype is there for success.
Yeah.
I don't think we should be expecting Fannin to have 1,000 yards as a rookie, but the archetype is there and it can work. So here he's matched up against a corner on the outside, and then he just beats him on the slant for a touchdown. What's this next one? So he's going to run a dig up here, and then the quarterback's going to break the pocket, and he'll find green space and make the big play. So he sees his quarterback getting out. So look at all this room here that he runs to. And then he makes, number 5, breaks his ankles. It's the little things where you don't expect a guy his size to be able to do that, but he does it. It doesn't look pretty, but it works.
Yeah.
Then here's a good blocking rep. So he's lined up right here on the left side of the formation, and then they're going to have him motion over as a lead blocker. This counterplay, boom, springs the back. So that's what you want, and he can do that. I would say he did it pretty consistently in college. It's just the blocking in space and staying engaged, I think he struggles with a little bit.
Yeah, because like his initial contact, he gets in there and he gets his hands on people. Like sometimes, sometimes he'll whiff, and I've got an example of that. And then sometimes I think he's a little uncertain of his assignment. But like for the most part, he gets his hands on him. He just needs to keep his hands on him and drive them a little bit more.
Yep. So this is going to be a 65-yard touchdown. So against an SEC school. Again, like you said, the long speed where he pushes vertically, he's open, wide open, makes the.
He doesn't see there.
He doesn't even touch him.
He gives him a couple of those. It's ridiculous. It's not quite as exaggerated as when Baker did it, but that's what I'm talking about. Like he's like taking these long herky jerky strides, but then changing direction at the same time. He's like it doesn't make sense.
This guy, this defensive back, he's faster than Fannin is. There's no reason this should be anything more, past like the 30, right?
Yeah.
One fakes him out. He's still in position to make the tackle, but then he cuts back inside, and then he does it while running away from everyone else. It's just that's just so much fun.
I just keep looking at it. I just keep going, well, that doesn't make sense, but that's fine.
Yes. That is now a thing that has been done, and I have to kind of acknowledge that now.
Yeah.
Here he's on the left side off screen here, but make the catch through contact and hold on. Here he's right over here, left side again, in line. Across the field. Make that catch. So he can do kind of the typical standard middle of the field inline tight end stuff, from a route packets perspective. But then you add on everything else that he can do, and that's really where the schematic versatility takes over. Some more blocking reps. So he's able to stay engaged on this guy. He's not in position to make the play, but it's still a positive blocking rep. So this is a really fun one because again, there is no reason this should work because it does not. You're like, what am I even watching right now? But it's a touchdown. So it's a double move. Like,
yeah.
Look at this. Just stop. One takes one step. So we
It's
could
a
probably
fake
work
out,
on the
man.
technique a little bit, but it works.
The
I mean,
only way I
Western
could
Michigan,
describe
but
it,
it's not the smallest school, right? So
right. The only way I could describe it is he just fakes people out. Like it's just
yeah.
like you look at the way he's kind of moving, and you're just like, I don't know where this guy's going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he like lulls the defender to sleep because they look at him and they look at the way he moves and they're like, okay, like I don't have to worry about this guy. And like, wait, what? How'd that happen? So
How is a guy
it's
smooth
just
and clunky at the same time? We don't know.
we don't know, but we don't really care either because it just works. Here's a pancake. Throws the guy to the ground, falls on top of him. That's a defensive lineman too, so I mean that's not nothing.
Yeah.
Um, this this is a ball that I think he should be able to catch. So he's open. The ball looks catchable to me. I just don't think he tracks it well enough. Like he should be at this point he should be trying to curve back over this way. I don't know if the wind catches the ball or something or what, but he ends up like a foot or two away from it. I think he has plenty of time and space to make that adjustment, but he's not able to. So, um, again, this wasn't something that I necessarily noticed as like a consistent pattern was ball tracking issues. But one example of a play that I think he should be able to make. Uh, and then this is another screen, so he's lined up as a running back here on the right side, and then he'll get the screen out of the backfield. Just as a standard running back. It makes the guy miss and powers through for a first down.
How many times have we seen Kevin run screens like this to David Njoku?
Yeah, exactly.
Like almost the
So
exact type of situation.
Yep. So I would expect to see plenty of those. And again, like tight end, I think tight end and defensive tackle are two of the most difficult positions for a rookie to make an impact in. I mean, we saw it. Like it took David Njoku like years before he was kind of what he is now, and that was years of people saying like, "All right, move on from this guy. He's a bust. He can't catch the ball. He can't block." And then he blossomed into one of the best tight ends in the league. So you've got to deal with this with Mason Graham. You got to deal with this with Harold Fannin, where these are talented prospects. They're good players. It just might take a couple seasons for them to really get going in the NFL because of the nature of the position. It's not a knock on them as prospects. It's just how that position goes. No matter how high you're drafted, for the most part, it takes a while for these guys to make big impacts. So, we just have to temper expectations. And again, he's not going to be relied on as the starter, right? He's the tight end too. And he's going to be further down the depth chart. They're going to bring him on slowly. They'll have specific packages, designed plays for him. So he's going to make an impact. It's just not going to be most likely a big one, as a rookie. But eventually it should come. And I think he's going to be a big part of this offense for the next, foreseeable future.
He went into a really good spot for him, not just because he's not going to be tight end one out the gate, but he's a similar archetype to the way David Njoku came into the league. Like I know I said that previously, but just a guy that had, he's had a way better season than David had coming into in terms because he had an insane 1,500-yard season. So he had a better season than Njoku's final season at Miami. But like they are both coming into the league where it's like super young, a lot of things they need to work on. Like David had some drop issues. He also had some blocking issues. All that stuff, is pretty well cleaned up. But it's like he can talk to the guy that is a better athlete than a lot of people and be like, hey, this is he can teach him the path to go down. He is literally a success story of being a super talented, an underdeveloped young prospect coming into the league and doing exactly what you need to do to blossom and hit that ceiling. So it's just a good spot for Harold Fannin, in my opinion. Like,
absolutely.
All right, let's get into this. I got some stuff for you here. Maybe Clip Champ. Clip Champ's the best, by the way. Sometimes I delete this, but I forget to. It's free. You can once you record. That's why I record all these things, and then I'm like, yeah, we got to clip them together. All right, so I'm going to start out here. We got some Penn State, and I've got some Akron. Toledo? I think it's Toledo, actually. Them playing Toledo a little bit. But I think it's just interesting that, like you said, two of his biggest games this year, like people want to, like, this is one thing I wanted to make sure I read this stat. We get he was in the MAC. So you talk about the 1,500 yards and what that means. Well, it was just in the MAC because that's normally what you get. But I wanted to read his splits from those two games. So the Texas A&M game that you were talking about, that you showed, he had 8 catches for 145 yards and a touchdown. This game against Penn State, he had 11 catches for 137 yards and a touchdown. So 100-yard games against Texas A&M, and he played Penn State and Texas A&M in consecutive weeks. Penn State, Texas A&M. That was the beginning of his season, and that's where it started. All right, you're gonna see him. He's gonna be down here. I got it. As soon as I hit play, it'll highlight where he's at. He's right there. This is what I'm talking about. Sometimes when he goes to block, he's going to kind of whiff on this guy, and then he just kind of is a little confused. He doesn't locate anybody, and I think that's kind of where some of the coaching needs to come up. He misses the guy, kind of like he's going to hit him, and then he doesn't, and then he just kind of looks around, doesn't know where to go, and just kind of looks a little lost. And that's just coaching, man. That's just more time coaching and playing the position and knowing what you should do if you miss that guy, where you should go. You can just see he doesn't really commit. That's the biggest thing that I had an issue with there is he doesn't really commit to going to one or the other. And I think that's what kind of creates that issue there. But again, that's just something I feel like he's going to be able to be coached up on. You can see him down here. This one is a good one because watch him just carry this guy all the way down the field. All the way down the field. It's twofold. It's a couple of things that makes this play happen. One, he kind of, and you'll see it in the end zone view here in just a second, he kind of does initially make it look like it's a route, like he's going to go vertically. Like he's going to, in that defender there that's on him is like, I have got to stay with him. But then you'll see him around the 40 or so yard line where he does get his hands on this guy. And you'll see him fully extend and drive this guy all the way down the field. So again, I showed you a bad blocking play. Here's a play where he uses his threat as a receiver as well. He's right here. Just watch him see. And then eventually he's going to get his arms on him here. And then he's just going to drive him all the way down. So that's his threat as a receiver and the motor, the effort, because I think he's an effort blocker. He's going to try his hardest. And in this situation, he got a guy that he was stronger than that he could bully, and he drove him almost to the end zone. So see him here, an example of him lined up in the slot. He's just going to kind of find some grass, first down. Just kind of fakes a little bit of a fake out, then just kind of leaks out there. Kind of puts a move here.
Again, Penn State knows who he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
They know what he's capable of. And
nobody went with him. He was like, okay, nobody's following me into this area of the field. I'm just going to sit here and they knew, like you said, he knew exactly who he was. Here he is. He just slips behind the defenders to the out route, elevates, gets behind the defense, gets a little physical, and then he just makes a really fun, crazy catch here on the sidelines here. Goes inside, kind of fakes him out, gets his hands on him. Doesn't care. Is this the play? Yeah, this is my favorite. Watch this play. The shovel pass and up and over. And that was a touchdown. I went back to check. But this is just an example of that versatility. And I said it with you on the when you were showing your tape with the screens. How many times has Kevin Stefanski thrown a shovel pass underneath the David Njoku?
A lot.
You now got multiple tight ends that can do it. So if you put David on one side and Fannin on the other, and you know what I mean, like it's just that threat that like the more you can do with the more players can do from different positions and things like that, the more creative your play caller can get. And that is what is the difference between Kevin Stefanski's offense for most of his tenure here versus his offense for last year. It just wasn't creative, and it wasn't, using guys in multiple different ways that would confuse people. But Fannin is a guy that can help some of that creativity come back. You see it from this angle. He's just going to come underneath here. Just going to throw it to him. He's going to jump over a defensive back at 240 pounds and just dive into the end zone. Here he's getting vertical. Boom. Between two guys, takes a hit. That's what I'm talking about, man. Like, here's a play where, we see him a lot of times with the ball in his hands run a little clunky, but you see him right here. He's just going to just straight line, and he's just going to press it, and he can get behind the linebackers that don't know, and then boom, takes a big hit, holds on to it. He can create these chunk plays, and you just got to be careful because the linebacker kind of comes up because he kind of, Fannin just doesn't really turn on the jets all the way, and he just slips right between there. He's the ball carrier here. Again, he is right here, lined up as the running back. Well, there's 3 running backs, so it's kind of more of an H-back here. But he's going to run into here. This looks like Quinshon Judkins one play from Alabama where he runs in there, has the contact balance and the wherewithal to be like, hey, nobody's put me on the ground here, and there's nowhere to go here. But if I go over there and lower my shoulder, like we talk about contact, like his play strength as a blocker, but it's like, it's not like he's weak. Like he shows you plenty of examples with the ball in his hands. It's just something. He just needs to refine stuff. You can't even find him in this view. And there he goes. There he is. Now he's running people over.
That's
sure.
It's just ridiculous for a tight end to be doing that. Like, you don't see that. So I just come back to, we talked about all of the stuff Quinshon Judkins could do last week at 220, and now we're seeing what Harold Fannin does at 240, and you're like, what do you want me to do with that? Like, as a defensive mind, you're like, well, he could go vertical. Sometimes he looks hunky and clunky, but sometimes he's this smooth, fluid athlete. It's just like he gets in there and gets some good coaching and like can refine some of this stuff. Like, my goodness. Why is a tight end doing that? I just want to watch it again. He just comes out of nowhere, starts shedding people. You'll see him here. He's up here at the top of your screen. He is tough to bring down after the catch, and it's not that he's only a yak guy, right? Like we've seen him get vertical.
Yeah.
And he's a threat at all 3 levels of the field, and that's, I think, part of what makes him such an intriguing prospect.
I love this one because this one he sells the fake so well. This is him at the top of the line. You're going to see him fake out the block, and he's just going to leak out. He's just going to run right around the 30. He's going to leak out. He's going to do his little like weird hunky clunky high step thing here and get past the defensive back. It might have been a linebacker. I can't tell. I think it was the defensive back. But he just leaks out. Watch him do this. Well, I'm just going to, all right. He fakes him out, and the guy gets a hold of him, and then he drags him like 6 yards. You see him on the left side of your screen. He's going to fake out the block here. Actually, he hits 2 people in there. He's like, what do you want to do?
I watched 5 of his games from last season, and I only saw him get squared up by a defender and not fall forward on a tackle one time. He's constantly doing that and getting those 2-3 extra yards, and that's exactly what Judkins does. I think that's just what they were looking for.
That's what I was about to say. I was like, it's that Quinshon Judkins effect, where you're watching a guy just turning everything into a net positive. He's right here, go a little simple out route. Just quick enough off the line of scrimmage, beats his man, goes in and out.
Penn State has some of the best athletes in college football every year, and he's doing this stuff against them.
The way I look at this play, like you see him, as he comes up here, and we'll see it in the end zone view a little bit better, it's just one quick false step. Makes it look like he might go up here or go over here. He kind of steps to the inside there and then steps out. And because of that, he creates enough separation, enough hesitation out of number 0 that he's able to get himself room, create an easy target. Because you'll see him come motion in here, and he does kind of like one false step in here. See right there? And he comes out and and then of course there's like a little pick play ran there too. But my point is he was able to create enough hesitation there to give an opening. On the top here, here he's going to drive somebody. There, look at that. Look at that. He blocked that guy 20 yards downfield.
Love to see it.
I just need more consistency. That's it. And in this, I think it looks like it's a defensive back because I think it's number 7 here. But you're looking at a guy being blocked 20 yards downfield. Yeah, it's number 7. He's going to hit number 7 and just take him completely out of the play. Just needs to be a little bit more consistent about it. Where he's just going to get vertical. Look at the top of the route. Just kind of, the guy's all over him. There's no separation here. He just kind of, I'm going to go out like this. I'm just going to, just kind of runs. Sees his quarterback, back shoulder, body adjustment, changes direction. Guy's calling for a push off. They didn't give it to him. I don't think he pushed off. He probably did, actually. Let's see if you can't see it from here. He bodies him up. You see him in the slot here. He's going to take a screen pass. Little false step. Hard to bring down. Creative after the catch.
He's creating yards when there shouldn't have been anything there against a elite college defense with NFL caliber athletes.
Yeah. It should have probably been a 1-yard gain. Said it was like 8. Just smooth, breaking tackles. Just another example of just crazy stuff that he does after the catch. Just a real quick route to him, and he just eats up yards in chunks, man. Like you said it. He falls forward. When he gets squared up, he doesn't go backwards. You'll see him, he's going to the left side of your screen. Just shrug 1, shrug 2, and just I don't know, he got like probably about 6 yards or more there after contact on that play, something like that. And he already got like 10 yards before contact. The bottom of your screen here, little fake out, get vertical, do his little high step to try to create a little couple more yards. I mean, it's not a full-blown high step, but that's just what it reminds me of. And you've seen him do it like 6 times. A little fake out there. Now he's going to catch it because he's too fast off the line. He's going to do that again. Get like 6 or 7 more yards. Here he is. That's an example right here where he's not able to drive a guy. This would be the last play I've got here. But he doesn't drive the guy out of the play. This is where I want him to get a little bit stronger here in this play, because you're going to see him. He's going to kick out on this defensive lineman, and he holds the defensive lineman up. Like he's got a hold of him, but he doesn't have the leg drive to drive him away. And because of that, the defensive lineman peels off and makes the tackle. Now, it's still like a positive gain. They still get like 4 or 5 yards here. So it's not the end of the world because he doesn't completely whiff on it. But you'll see him, he holds him up, and then he's able to peel off. And there's help there. But the guy's able to peel off. He drives him a little bit more. You know, you want to see that a little bit more drive. He's right here. And you see he just kind of holds him up, doesn't keep his legs moving. So you end up just kind of with a play that maybe there was a little bit more yardage that could have been had if he was able to kick out block there. But that's the thing. The blocking to me is an area that needs worked upon. But I kept seeing all these people just say he was horrible. And I'm like, he's not horrible. Like it's not.
I wouldn't even say he's bad. I would say he's a net positive as a blocker right now. Now, NFL strength and NFL defenders, like that's going to be a factor. But as a college player, I think he was a net positive, and I think there's a path to him having that same impact in the NFL, if not even more. So I don't see him as he can't block, he can't possibly go in line. Again, like you said earlier, if he's your tight end one in line guy, yeah, that's probably not the ideal scenario for him. But as a part of a room, I think he absolutely can become that all-around guy who can do a bunch of different things, be versatile in a lot of different areas of the game, and make a positive impact in all of them, including blocking.
Yeah, like for me, I kept saying during the draft cycle, I was like, I think he's fine as a blocker. Like he's fine. He's not a liability. Like there are examples where he's a liability, but like, okay, they're not as, it's not every play like some people want to act like it was. It's just like you said.
I can find plays of George Kittle not looking good as a blocker. That doesn't mean he's a bad blocker, right? So It's not something that I'm concerned about. Like obviously you wanted to get better with everything else, but he's not a liability. It's not a concern I have with him, and I think it's something that he's going to continue to grow into, literally and metaphorically, into as he gets 2, 3, 4 years of experience and muscle mass adding. So it's going to happen. I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, especially this year. I think he's more of a receiver than anything. Like obviously he's going to block because they're going to put Stefanski's going to ask everybody to block at some point because he's going to make it look like it's a passing formation and they're going to run the ball in some creative way. But yeah, like I think it's going to be fine. Give him some time. He's just going to need time. Like if you're thinking, and of course he's probably your 4th or 5th best option as a pass catcher behind like Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku, and I would probably put Cedric Tillman up there ahead of him. But he's probably going to be in the top 5 in target share, I would think.
I would think so at this point, just going off of talent on the depth chart. Like there's not, they don't have a whole lot else at wide receiver. So unless a guy like Mike Woods or Jamari Thrash takes a big step forward that we're not really expecting, I don't think it's unheard of to say he's option number 4 in the passing game.
I think part of it too will be how much do they throw to the running backs, because the running backs all 3 of them, Quinshon Judkins, Jerome Ford, and Dylan Sampson combined, I think could get a big target share just because I think all 3 of them can do some things like we talked about last week. Quinshon's not a natural pass catcher yet, but but Ford and Sampson are pretty good. Like, hey, here in 2 weeks, we'll talk about Dylan Sampson. Next week's going to be fun because I'm sure people will be very happy when we talk about Dylan Gabriel, and that there will be no controversy whatsoever when we do that episode, and nobody will be upset about it. And, we'll just 3 weeks from now, we'll do the final one with the other quarterback. And yeah. So we appreciate you guys so much for checking in on your Memorial Day. Hey, Browns 3D at 6:00 tomorrow, every day, Monday through Friday with Jeff Lloyd tomorrow, 7 p.m. You'll get the React with Pete and and Brad, which is always a fun time. I love that. I say this all the time. I love the React because I don't have the time sometimes to find all these national media clips talking about the Browns, but Brad and Pete put it together in one nice little pod for me, so I get to hear it and all that. I used to tell Brad that all the time. I'm like, thanks for doing all the work for me. I know all the national narratives and everything because I just have to watch the React. So make sure you tune in tomorrow at 7 for that. We did not record this show live. This show is not streaming live, but I will be live in the comments, which I guess I should have said at the beginning of the show because nobody now it doesn't matter when you're watching this part, but whatever. Make sure you subscribe, hit that like button. We appreciate you guys so much. We'll see you again next week.